So following Dricus Du Plessis' victory at UFC 305, Submission Radio caught up with his head coach, Morne Visser, who on my channel I have been an advocate for, saying I believe he should be the MMA coach of the year. And I will go ahead and link this full interview down below. And Submission Radio, I want to give them their props, man. They are one of the only outlets that I go out to and listen to when it comes to interviews and stuff. They always do a great job. So I will link this down below because they did a great job with this interview. They got right to it. So I pulled out some specific things that I want us to listen to and take a look at. And we're going to start with them talking about how Izzy caught them off guard, their game plan, walking us through the finish, the feud between Izzy and DDP, and has that died down? And you're going to get to hear a great answer by Morne in this. And then the thoughts on a possible rematch with Izzy, and then what a fight would look like with Alex Pereira at 185 and then 205, because they're two very different things. Because Alex would be draining himself to make 85, or he would be, where he seems his best at 205. So let's hear what Morne has to say here. But we're going to start at 40 seconds in. He's going to talk about how Izzy actually caught them off guard, because on my channel, I said Izzy was going to be aggressive. I was expecting a dialed-in Adesanya that I thought was coming to fight. He wasn't coming into this fight to try to win on points. But let's hear what Coach Visser has to say.
We did not expect Izzy to come out as aggressively as he did. So we got caught a little bit, but on our back foot, but we'll fix it. It's an easy fix. Dricus doesn't like to fight on his back foot, so it's an easy fix.
Yeah. So right away, you get to hear him say they were surprised that Adesanya came out aggressive, and I got to be honest, I find that kind of surprising. I find that surprising because Izzy, in a lot of those fights where he's fought Paulo Costa, if you go back and watch that, where he fought Kelvin Gastelum, to these guys that like to move forward and get into that boxing range, you've seen Izzy fight, and you know that he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. I think he's referring to a little bit more of the forward pressure, but I find that surprising because in the second fight in MMA between Izzy and Pereira, we saw Izzy a lot more forward, a lot more aggressive. So I think coming off of the Strickland loss, beating Pereira the second time, coming into the Strickland fight where he was on the back foot the whole time, where he got beat by Strickland, I figured he was going to come into this fight being very aggressive with a point to prove, knowing that he can't just let DDP bully him around. So I actually find that a little shocking. But to say that DDP on the back foot, that is definitely we know that with Dricus Du Plessis. He does his best work when he is moving forward and dictating the pace. Now, let's move on here to where he is going to talk about what the game plan was coming into this fight for Israel Adesanya, and then why I've said before, why I say this man is a great mind inside of MMA. He's going to talk about what went wrong and the adjustments that they had to make on the fly.
So we've obviously everybody's got their little game plan, and our plan was to beat him on the foot. So in other words, if he's southpaw, we go orthodox. If he's orthodox, we go southpaw. Try to beat him on the foot, and then, but at the same time, put the pressure. And he was the one in the beginning to put the pressure. So it was I had to do a little bit of adjustment. Also, the plan was not to allow him to counter us, and I wasn't much interested in countering. He was coming, so which was an amazing thing to see from Izzy. So I definitely know we're going to see him soon again. So halfway through the fight, the second round, I said to Dricus, okay, we've got to keep this a lot more simple. Forget about the combos. Try to land single punches and try to catch him and still beat him on the foot, which we did. He caught us very off guard with that, with those body shots coming forward. But Dricus caught him also a couple of times off guard. So I think we could have finished him maybe in the second, and then in the third there was opportunity.
So I want to stop this for a second here. So he's saying that the body work that Israel Adesanya put on display, I mean, I even gave Izzy his props in my post-fight recap. I'm like, look, that was one of the best versions of Izzy we've seen. The boxing was noticeably better. And to me, that was a smart game plan by Izzy. A guy like DDP, who's a big physical guy who likes to move forward, how can you stop their momentum? How can you take away some of that gas tank? You work the body. You attack the midsection. And we saw Adesanya doing it. He was throwing that jab out there, leaving it in his face. And we've seen him normally throw the right hand right down the middle behind it. That's how he was able to hurt Alex Pereira. And he was doing the same thing, but instead he was changing it to a hard right hand, almost like basically like a right hook, right to the body to try to take some of the air out of DDP. So just wanted to point that out. So again, I'm actually surprised that some of these things caught them off guard, knowing that, you know, these are things that Izzy has done in the past against some aggressive opponents.
Opportunities to do it. But I think he did proper damage with those body shots. So Dricus had to recover. And at the end of the third, I said to him, okay, I think you've got to push now. It's time to go, beginning of the fourth. He said he predicted a third round finish, so we got a fourth. So I'm happy.
Not too bad.
So they get a fourth round finish with the submission. But again, you get to hear they had a very unique, Coach Visser and DDP, they had a very good idea of what they were in for. And they executed the game plan perfectly. There was a little bit of static in the beginning because Adesanya came out aggressive. They weren't prepared for that. But then again, making the adjustments on the fly, realizing, look, we just got to keep sticking to what we're doing. We still, you know, we got to switch our stances. We got to match and stick to the game plan. And I think that that's what Dricus does such a good job of, is sticking to the game plan, because it's easy when things go wrong. We see guys like Michael Chandler, they throw a game plan out the window and they just start swinging and going at it, which, I mean, it's fighting, and to a degree you have to, you know, bend a little bit here and there. But the ability to stay disciplined and stick to a game plan in a huge fight, because this was the biggest fight I think DDP's ever been in. So to be able to stick to the game plan, trust your coach like this, it just speaks to the relationship between these guys. But let's move on to 438 here, where Coach Visser is going to talk about the feud coming into this fight, because that's where, again, right, you know, people kind of read into a lot of this stuff, and I get that it upsets people or kind of, you know, whatever. But this is a good answer, right? It's a difficult thing to go about. He gives a pretty good answer, knowing that, again, when you sign up to fight somebody, a lot of things are going to be said. But just listen to the answer here from Coach.
So from our side, honestly, there was never bad blood. I knew we were fighting the best version of Izzy ever. I mean, that version of Izzy is like the best I've seen him in a very long time.
Now, I'm going to stop this for a second, because that right there, the coach not only gives credit to Israel Adesanya, we just had Dean Thomas sit up there on ESPN in the post-fight recap say how terrible Israel Adesanya looked, which I think is absolutely disgraceful, because I think Izzy, that was one of the best versions we've ever seen of Adesanya. I said leading up to the fight we were going to see a dialed-in guy. I said in the recap his boxing looked better. He looked outstanding. Was he maybe not standing in the pocket the same way we've seen in the past? Could be, but do you think that some of that has to do with the guy that's in front of him in DDP? So just wanted to point that out.
Because, I mean, you saw if Izzy catches you, he puts you down. So Dricus ate so many of his punches and not going in, and that kills the spirit. But there was never, ever, ever from our side, not even from Dricus' side, any bad blood. That was just purely what we said was, basically what Dricus was trying to say is, we're doing very good, very okay, coming from a little gym in South Africa, and we've got, we don't have the bodies and the facilities like they've got in Europe and in America and even Australia and New Zealand. So we've got to do what we've got to do with what we've got. So that was actually the only thing Dricus wanted to get through was, we staying in South Africa, we're not going anywhere else to get coached. My coach is coaching me, and we'll win the title with what we got. So there was never bad blood.
Are you relieved to?
So there you go. You get to hear from him. That's a classy answer from Coach here. But let's move on to actually 601. So shortly after this, I actually thought that this was really interesting. So we've been talking here on my channel and just in general, it feels like the MMA world, it's like, our sights are set for the next, because whenever you win a title fight, it's exciting in the moment. But then as, in the community, fans, whatever, we're instantly thinking, well, what's next? What's next? Who you fight next? And this is actually really interesting to hear from Coach here, because we've all been talking about Strickland. We've been talking about, Whitaker, Chimaev, those winners. Listen to what he thinks, kind of where his head is at for the future in terms of a possible rematch with Izzy.
Warming at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's peace in Africa now. Which is a good feeling. But I did say to Izzy earlier when I saw him, I said to him that I believe that there's talks about doing Africa or South Africa sometime. I don't think it's going to be too soon. But I said to Izzy that I think the only guy that deserves to fight us in Africa is Izzy. So it will be a rematch. And the only guys that deserves Africa are the two Africans, the true Africans, nobody else. Yeah. So that's just my opinion.
Just out of curiosity, on a side note, while we're talking about the future, by the way, I'd love to see Dricus in Israel.
That is huge. To think about that for a second. How big, if Izzy, now there's a lot of ifs, right? There's a lot of ifs. Can Dricus still be the champion? Can Izzy stack some wins together? How big of an event would that be? To go, whether it's South Africa, wherever it would be, somewhere in Africa, whatever. Imagine if you had DDP versus Adesanya. That would be huge. A rematch like that would be absolutely huge. But let's move on here to 658. Where he talks about, or actually we could just let it play, where they talk about the Alex Pereira, chiming in following DDP's victory.
Israel rematch in Africa, but Alex Pereira tweeted out that he's coming down to 185. Do you think it happens, and is it something that would interest you guys somewhere down the line?
Which, by the way, I do not think Alex Pereira is actually interested in going back to 185. I think that was kind of like a Conor McGregor special, where there's a lot of buzz going on right now, so you take advantage of the moment by teasing something that may or may not happen. Like, guys, Alex Pereira at 205 right now, especially in his last two fights, this is a guy that's talking about going up to heavyweight. This is a dude that looks absolutely massive. I think he's like somewhere in the area of like 240 pounds walking around now. I mean, this guy ain't making 185 again. And even if he does, he's going to be absolutely drained. He'll be a shell of himself. So I have no interest in seeing that unless it's at 205, which we're going to hear Coach Visser's thoughts on that. But let's get back to this.
So, interesting question, but no, I won't give him the joy to go down to 185. We'll just go up.
Or you'd rather go up a light heavyweight?
Yeah. We don't want to beat him. And then he said he'll say that we've gone down, or he had to go down, and he was fatigued and whatever. So no, we'll go up. And I'm sure that the UFC will be okay with that, going up if that's what he said. I know Dricus is game, so we'll go up. I'm not going to wait for him to come down. We'll go up.
So are you saying that this could be something that happens soon? If the UFC gives it the blessings to happen.
So he's fighting in October. So I really hope the UFC gives us this blessing for December.
Oh, wow.
As soon as that.
In December. So we're all over here talking about, the possibility of Strickland and this and that. So if Alex Pereira goes out there at, because he's booked for UFC 307 in Utah against Khalil Roundtree. I mean, I really think that Poatan, it's a fight. Anything can happen. Poatan's been in there with high-level strikers his entire life, and people think that Khalil Roundtree is going to be bringing something different to the table that Poatan hasn't seen. Like, I think Poatan runs him over, and not only that, a fight in December at UFC 310 in Vegas between Poatan and DDP, that would be crazy. Now, I don't know that the UFC is going to do that this soon. I think that they're going to try to, because it seems like they're being a little more particular in allowing guys to go up and try to, or go up or go down and try to win a double belt. So I don't know if we see that, but that's crazy if that happens.
Yeah.
And how do you see a fight at 205 between Dricus and Alex playing out, with him, I suppose, not having to cut as much weight?
Yeah, it's a different game plan.
Look, Coach, I like DDP and I like Coach Visser, man, but we got to be real. He's sitting there. He's like, at 185, we could just kind of lean on him. We could drain the gas tank. He's watched the highlights. He's watched the past couple fights where he's like, that's a dude to be in front of, man. You know, he's trying not to laugh here. I think he's trying not to laugh. He's like, that's a dude, man, right there. He's like, that guy Poaton's a different bird. But look, no way is DDP and Coach Visser shying away from this challenge, because if you're looking around and you want to be, you know, a guy that can go down as being like a GOAT, because to be honest with you, a guy like Dricus, he kind of reminds me of GSP in a way, with the style to where it's like, where he can kind of do everything and he will take his opponent to where he is better than them. Wherever DDP has the advantage, that's where he's going to take the fight. So a fight with him and Alex, I mean, that's a crazy fight.
Guys, that's something I'm going to have to think about and obviously go and really figure out. But there's no way we're going to walk away from getting asked from the UFC to do something like that. I mean, we were criticized a few times with Dricus saying no because of injuries in the past. This fight was supposed to happen earlier. And I'm glad it didn't, because I'm sure that Easy changed his whole game plan. And so this was a proper brawl. Yeah, don't ask me now what the game plan will be for Alec, but if it's December, we'll be ready.
Now, how crazy would that be? Poatan versus DDP in December. I don't know that the UFC is going to do that personally. But again, I'll link this video down below that I just made the other day talking about getting DDP to stardom. And that's a huge way to elevate it. That's a huge way to catapult it, to send a guy, you know, up to win a second belt. It's a huge thing. And we've seen this with Conor McGregor. We've seen it with Cormier. We've seen it with Nunes, like with Cejudo, even though he's not a huge name per se. It's still a huge thing whenever you're able to win 2 belts, but I do believe that the UFC is being a lot more particular in handing out those double champ shots, because it kind of holds up a division a little bit in a way. But if it's a guy that they feel they like, they feel confident in, you know, they could give him the opportunity. But again, if DDP is someone that they're going to be marketing, if Alex is going to be someone that they're marketing, I see Dana giving a similar answer to why Poatan's not moving up to heavyweight right now, why Topuria and O'Malley don't have a super fight. And a lot of that is, you got to build these guys up first. Build them up to almost their maximum star power before you have them fight each other, so nobody's getting devalued, right? So why would you, if from the business side, let's continue to build these guys in their weight classes and not devalue one of them, even though as fight fans, I don't think we look at a guy like, oh, because he went up a weight class and he lost, like, oh, we look at him different now. No, it's a challenge and he took on a challenge. But this was a great interview, and then they're just going to wrap it up at the end here. So just to close this out, man, this guy is my Coach of the Year nomination. Like, if I could hand out the award, I would be giving it to Coach Visser, because not only is, you know, you could just see the mind from this guy, the way that they come in very prepared, they have a game plan, they have different things that they're looking to do, but when shit hits the fan, how can you adjust on the fly, right? We see this in other sports. You can sit back behind the table and draw up the perfect plays and this and that, but if someone adjusts and shuts those down, how do you adjust on the fly? How do you make those halftime adjustments, which in fighting, you know, you got to get those halftime adjustments in between the rounds, and you got a minute, less really, because by the time you get to the stool and this and that, you got, you know, 30, 40 seconds, I don't know, you know, to make some of those adjustments. And just the way that he is able to do that, take DDP, utilize his skill set and get the most out of it, it's very impressive. So just wanted to break this down because I thought this was a very insightful interview. Submission Radio did a good job here. But if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, comment your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel, help me out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.